Example 155. If a completely randomized design experiment involving 5 different antibacterial solutions randomly sprayed onto 30 different plates filled with a common cold virus, each of the 5 sprays will be used on 6 different plates, what multiple comparison method would be used if you wanted to make pairwise comparisons? Okay, so what they're doing here is they're asking us simply, after the end of the completely randomized design experiment, once we've finished running the ANOVA test, let's assume that we reject the null hypothesis. We say that there's differences between the means. We want to decide which means are actually different from one another. They're asking what multiple comparison procedure would we use. So let's try to remember the 3 options that we discussed in the course. These are by no means the only 3 options. There are many, many options for doing this kind of multiple comparison, but we discussed 3 mainly in this course. We have the one by Tukey, which is the method where when you have equal sample sizes, you can make pairwise comparisons. That's like just comparing, say, A to B or B to C, something like that. Then we had Bonferroni, the second guy here. He can do his comparisons with equal or unequal sample sizes. So that's a little more flexible than Tukey. The downside is it's a wider interval in general. So that means that normally you would want to choose Tukey over Bonferroni if it's possible to do that. And again, that's for pairwise comparisons. And then lastly, you have Chaffee, and Chaffee is for equal or unequal sample sizes, just like Bonferroni, but he can handle general contrast. What a general contrast is, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, they're essentially linear combinations of the means. What that means is you could say something like, A is greater than B plus C plus D, something like that. And that's a more general comparison than what you can do with the pairwise. You could also do pairwise comparisons with Chaffee as well, but you wouldn't do that because this is the widest possible interval of among the 3 choices. So you could find an interval that would be shorter, so maybe Bonferroni or Tukey in those cases. All right, so either way, what we have to do in this problem is decide 2 things. First of all, are we doing a pairwise comparison or do we want to do a more general contrast? That's the first thing we should probably look at. And then if we decide that it's pairwise, then we're going to decide, well, do we have equal sample sizes or unequal sample sizes? So let's see if when we read the problem we can make that out. It tells us that, first of all, there's pairwise comparisons. Do you see that? So if you wanted to make pairwise comparisons. So if we're making pairwise comparisons, then it seems to me that we have to stick with either Tukey or Bonferroni. So we'll eliminate Chaffee as an option, and let's continue on from there and then decide whether the sample sizes are equal or not. Well, it says that you're going to have 5 different antibacterial solutions, right? Randomly sprayed onto 30 different plates filled with a common cold virus. But then it tells us that each of the 5 sprays will be used on 6 different plates. So that means all of the 5 sprays get 6 different plates to be applied to. That means equal sample sizes, doesn't it? So if that's the case, then we're going to go ahead and choose Tukey because we'll say that that gives us the smallest interval possible in this scenario.